aliens and the government and Kamala Harris. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast of and for the people, the greatest football podcast on earth, Francamente. My name is Franca. I'm your host, and I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. Are you ready to buy us your football content? Let's go. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. It feels like I have not done this in longer than in actuality because we had a little snafu week. If you will, the powers that be, the government, Joe Biden, and they, okay, did not want us to disclose what we had said somewhere in that episode, because all of the powers that be, the Pope, okay, NATO, like something did not want us to get that message out because we tried twice, y'all. So we recorded, we thought we recorded, it didn't record, and so re-recorded the next day, and then the sound was fucked. So I don't know what it was that NATO didn't want you to hear, but I'm gonna keep fighting the good fight, and trying to get these messages out there to y'all. So thank you for your patience as we navigate these waters where we're being surveilled by aliens and the government and Kamala Harris, and Kate Middleton, and they don't want the message. They don't want the message to get out there, but we're going to continue to fight the good fight. So, but thank y'all. We're back. We will not let a little tech issue stop us. We've got a fuller set today. So if you're not watching on YouTube, head over to YouTube to check out how this set is coming together. The art on the walls is mostly like radical, some of it's football, a lot of it's music. There's a Maradona picture right there. I've got Maradona pictures in front of me too, behind y'all. Football pictures. So it's coming together. Every week gets a little bit better. So head on over to YouTube to check out the set. And what am I wearing today? This lighting doesn't make it look as like neon orange as it is. The accents. It's one of my favorite kits. It's a United kit from maybe 2019 no, later than that, maybe 2020, 2021. It's the black with the like light gray, with like the dark gray roses, commemorative third kit that had like the hot or the neon orange accents and the gray stripes. I'm obsessed with this kit. It's one of my favorite. I love a black kit. And you know what's crazy is that many teams, so we're going to talk a little bit about cash grab friendlies. Many teams these days are doing black kits, national teams. So Argentina played El Salvador in one of these friendlies. El Salvador was playing in black. Panama released a really sexy black kit with gold, like chrome gold accents. Gorgeous. Like I was like, this might be my very first in life CONCACAF kit purchase, because it's so sexy. And I love Panama for like everything they've stood for and dealt with that ridiculous robbery at the Gold Cup and all that stuff. So like black kits are in, and I'm so happy because I love a black kit. I love an alternative kit, especially if black is not one of the colors of the team. Like give it to me. So black is in, y'all. So that's what I'm wearing today. This is a favorite, and I cannot believe that this is my first time wearing it. I thought I would have worn it the first year, but looking back, I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't because it's one of my faves. So now I can rock it. So yeah, what's going on? It feels odd. I'm in an odd time, right? Like I haven't been watching a ton of football. We had that snafu last week. Last week's episode was so good, and I'm so sad it never got to make it out to the public because Julian Assange said that He said this is the best podcast on earth. So of course they started to like censor us and surveil us because like duh, right? Like obviously. Um, so let's talk about those friendlies. Let's talk about that money grab. I have always hated a friendly. I hate a friendly. I hate when they and whatever the fuck they call it, because they started to like call it like tournament and cup and this and whatever. When they used to have those like money grab like friendlies, and they'd have like Juventus come and like Barcelona and stuff like that. They started to do that. And it was like for them to come to the States, and I never once attended those games. Like people are like, oh, like so and so coming to Red Bull Arena. I do not care. I do not care. I've always hated a friendly. I am philosophically opposed. Okay, the idea of friendlies is that folks that teams, whether clubs or countries, have a more formalized version of a practice, right? So especially with countries, like they're always practicing right among themselves, and the idea of friendlies is that it's an outside of tournament game where it's basically a glorified practice. You can get like genuine experience playing another team, but it doesn't count for anything, right? Like people, they tend to like you go a little bit easier because it's practice, and so no one wants to get injured, that kind of thing. I think that's great. I think that what it has turned into is ridiculous. Okay, like every single summer, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse as like my cognitive memory as an adult goes back, and it used to not be this bad, and it gets worse every single year, where it's like now they're doing these like cups, and they make them come here into LA and whatever, and it's ridiculous anymore. So now all this schedule for friendlies for the summer is insane. They're playing international friendlies right now. Argentina just beat El Salvador. Like it was mostly CONMEBOL. It was a CONMEBOL friendly schedule, but a lot of the games were against CONCACAF teams. And most CONCACAF teams lost, and I think that's hilarious. I think that's hilarious. But the fact that, for example, and they're having like friendlies in London, like I think Colombia just played in London, like it's absurd. And in one way, right? And from an accessibility standpoint, it's like, okay, if you live here in the United States, you don't have any connection to, like, let's say Argentina, besides like maybe your family's Argentinian, that's your team, but you don't have a way to go there, it's expensive, whatever. All right, like it's fine. The fact that they play games here, cool, like fine. But the fact that they turn it into a money grab to like try to make as much money as possible from these friendlies, and then it becomes a thing with like all these club teams, and then everyone pays like hundreds of dollars for these tickets to see Barcelona. Half the time, again, like in the past couple years, it's changed a little bit, but like Barcelona wouldn't even send their best to these because it's a glorified practice. That's always been the point of these friendlies, right? It's a glorified practice. So then you get to this, like, people paying hundreds of dollars or whatever for these games that don't even get to see the best players play. And like, again, it's one of those things, accessibility. Like, are you going to have the money to travel to Barcelona to see Barcelona play in Barcelona, blah, 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 etc.? No. And like, so cool, they get to play here. But I still think from a perspective of like, FIFA saw a way to make money and they're exploiting it. And I hate that. I think that and I'm an international figure, right? So like, when I talk about my teams, I have teams in many countries because because I'm from many countries. So a lot of this, is like from birth and like whatever. So, I have traveled. I've been really fortunate. One of my like claims to fame in terms of one of my most famous uh games that I got to see was Manchester United versus PSG for the Champions League. When Manchester United turned it around in Paris. And unheard of. I think they had to score like 5 goals, and they did. I was there. I almost died. Literally because PSG fans are insane. I wasn't wearing any United stuff or anything. Like someone literally who's wearing a United thing, like in the row I was in, like was like disappeared and ousted. Like we turned around, turned back around, he was gone. Like they don't fuck around in Paris. Like the experiences like that are incredible. I love that. I'm like so thankful and so privileged to have gotten to do that. But I know that's not everyone's, like accessibility, like accessibility wise, but even when you look at like, all right, let's say their intention was really pure to, to make it accessible to folks in the US, whatever. Like, why are you making the tickets so expensive then? So who are you making it accessible for exactly? The same people that probably have the money to travel to see them play in Barcelona, right? So like, I don't know. I hate it. I hate that it's become such a thing. Like it's such like a, oh my God, so and so's playing and like, yeah, you're like seeing Argentina like play. It was at in Philly that they played El Salvador. Like Messi didn't play. The rest of the team played. But I don't know. I'm just like I am philosophically opposed to the whole, glorification of these really like practice games is what they are. So I haven't been watching that. There was a cool not a friendly but another like kind of like, some of these cups get kind of ridiculous. United beat Liverpool to get to the, not that that's a ridiculous cup, but I'm saying like there's so much going on at once, right? And do we think that this is good for the player's health? Like there was a time when, obviously like athleticism has changed in terms of like what players even can look like, what they can eat, what they can, like the physicality has changed and become like more important and all of these things. But I think we've gone way too far in the direction of like treating these human beings like robots where it's like it's constant, right? It's constant. It's like playing for this, playing for the cup, playing for the international friendly, playing for their country, playing for this, but like it's nonstop. And we, and we're seeing the effects of that with all of the injuries. It gets ridiculous and people start to make jokes, right? But about like, oh, everyone like this person's always injured, blah, blah, but like I mean, what do you expect that like literally the human body can only do so much, even though they're like, extreme like the elite athletes of the world. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I think we're doing too much. I think we're doing too much. I think, like, for example, the 2016 Copa America that was in the United States, the Centenario or whatever, like, I think that was a money grab. I hated that, commemorative, like, such an important trophy, such an important cup in the world, like worldwide, right? Was reduced to like a money grab in the United States. And I attended games. I was even at that final. It was heartbreaking. Argentina lost. I'm probably gonna go to Copa America games this summer, but I don't. I'm like because it's one of those things where it's like it's the passion, it's the from birth thing. Like and so like I'm gonna try to get every chance I get to see live football. And in the same turn, like philosophically, it's getting harder and harder to continue to continue to keep up the farce, right? So I'm just I don't know what we're doing with these international friendlies, but it's too much. It's too much. It's like okay, like the money grab thing, the money hunger, like the obsession with money. It's so obvious. Not that, ever since FIFA has been in existence, it's been obvious. It's been like a money grab, right? Like money ruined the sport. But it's getting harder and harder to look past it, right? It's getting harder to look past it. And I'm like, oh, I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted. So one of the things, there is going to be no transitions today. It's a no transitions day. It's a collage. Today's episode is a collage of things that I am stringing together because we're faking it till we make it. So one of the things I'm running out of names. Ridiculous names to say. One of the things that the UN didn't want you to hear in the last episode was about Uruguayan supremacy. There was one day where in one day, 3 Uruguayans were the headline in the world. Okay. 3 Uruguayans were like the best players in the world that day. And those 3 Uruguayans are Cavani, Luis Suarez, and Darwin Nunez, right? So Darwin that day made a goal to win Liverpool the game in like the last like 99th minute or whatever. Luis Suarez debuted in goals, and I think he scored three. I think he had a hat trick that day. And then Cavani also like was in a drought for Boca Juniors, getting all sorts of shit from everyone in the world, like, you know, because everyone's like so quick to turn on people. And then he ended the drought. I also think he either scored a brace or a hat trick. I don't remember. That was the day we were like on cloud nine, right? Like Uruguayans making all of the headlines, and I think that's what the government didn't want you to hear. um and like, but we are always going to celebrate Uruguayan supremacy. The Uruguay is currently playing a friendly versus the Basque country, El País Vasco, which is interesting. They do have a national team, but also some of their players play for Spain. So it's a really interesting thing that they get to have that, and they're not allowed. They don't play in like major tournaments, but they're able to like do the, so like they're playing a friendly against Uruguay, and I would just think it's really interesting. Like Uruguay has a lot of Basque ancestry, myself included. I used to joke in college when we were learning about like Basque and like terrorism, which like obviously we know that anytime the US calls any or like the West, you know, the Western world calls any group a terrorist, we have to question we have to question the legitimacy of how, you know, like our like who the US military is the biggest terrorist organization on the planet, right? So, but anyway, so I would always joke, like, of course I'm Basque, like, look at me, you know what I mean? Like, look at me, like, I'm like, you know, I'm too radical for most spaces. Of course I'm Basque, you know? I should make that TikTok, but it's interesting. So there's a lot of Basque ancestry in Uruguay, and so they're playing against each other. I think that's an interesting, friendly situation that, you know, I think friendlies are allowed to exist, but we just don't have to make it like a thing, like such a money grab, right? Like that's my whole point there. But Uruguayan supremacy above all else will always be the thing. And I think with that, we'll take it to a break, and we'll be right back.
Hey, make sure to follow and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. And help us out by leaving a rating and review, and remember to share it with a friend. Don't forget to follow Franca on Twitter and Instagram at Francamente for the latest news. And lastly, please visit realfrancamente.com for bonus content, including articles, photos, and for more information about the podcast.
And we're back. We're sticking with let's see. Well, we just talked about Spain and the Basque Country. Let's talk a little bit about Iñaki Williams, the king that he is. Iñaki, I love that name. First of all, that's a Basque name. I think he is one of the pioneers of this movement of like players of African ancestry playing for these European countries. And I think with that comes really great groundbreaking stuff, right? They're able to like set the stage for other folks to do it, for other folks to see that it's okay to do it. But he's also very proudly Ghanaian. Like there's nothing about him that isn't, you know, and he like talks about this openly. And he just did an interview, and he's not one of those players that you would Bill, so he's not controversial in any way. So we know obviously that people like Vinicius, talk a ton about racism, and I think that's beautiful. And I also hate the man. And like two things can be true at once. Hello, dialectical materialism. Um, but he is controversial in the sense that like he's like arrogant and like there's something to be said about like the critique there and the fact that he chose Real Madrid, all that stuff, right? There is nothing about Iñaki that is controversial, and the fact that he's been allowed, okay, so like of course he's basque enough to play for athletic, right? So I love that. I think that's beautiful. I think that's inclusive. And Spain is one of the most racist countries in the world, and he's not immune. He's not immune, right? So, but he's not, that I have seen, at least at this level where it like really made the news like this, talked openly about it. And so he did a podcast interview where he talked about like racism that he's faced in a very like rational like way. That, and I say that because haters and bigots and racists will always find reasons to cut down anyone that talks about racism, right? And so, but I think, and again, I've been obviously like, I've been wrong before about this because I always have hope that I'm like, this is the thing that'll make people to like see like this is the actual issue, and it never is. But I do think that these types of narratives from someone as like serious as Iñaki, as like not, he's not like showboaty. There's nothing that bigots can grasp onto to critique him for, like there is like they grasp onto with people who have this other like type of personality, right? Which doesn't make it okay, but that is what is the reality, is like they grasp onto anything, and so like they're like, oh, so and so is to this, is to that. There is nothing you could say about Iñaki. He's a very like good, like serious player. He keeps his head down. He doesn't cause drama. He's not obsessed with himself. He's not arrogant. Like he's just like a humble, like normal dude. And so, and he was on this podcast speaking about, he can't believe, he's like, and he literally, and he's so humble that he even takes it to this place, right? He's like, look, critique me for my playing, critique me for my form, for my whatever, like say whatever, insult me, but like the color of my skin, like what does this have to do with anything? It's 2024, basically. I'm paraphrasing what he said. And that's the type of message that I think could help us actually get somewhere. Again, realistically, and this is what I do for a living, so I know that realistically, people are still going to try to like find ways to like discredit him. But I think for anyone that may be on the rational side and have, ideas about like anti-racism being to this or anti-DEI or whatever, we might be able to get some folks over to our side with a narrative like this, of someone that's just like coming at it from like such like a point, like such like like a just a normal position. He's just like, dude, like come on, and like he doesn't go to that arrogant place of like, I'm so awesome and like whatever. He's like, I'm just a regular guy, critique me for whatever you want, but the racism part is like too much. And I really admire that he even had the courage to do that, because it feels so mild. It feels like such like a mild, thing that we should all be like, yeah, this is like bare minimum stuff, right? And it isn't, unfortunately. Like it's not. It's gonna make waves. So I'm really glad. Shouts to Iñaki. Fun side story. Because I have ADHD. When I was like younger, and I think when I don't even know, like my brother is 5 years younger than me, and so he was a kid maybe, or he was like a young like teen maybe, and we had gotten this idea in our heads that we were going to change, that we were going to get middle names, because we don't have middle names. No one in my family does. And so my mom does, but my dad and me and my brother don't. So we wanted middle names because we're Basque. We had been like talking about like officially changing our name, but not changing our name, just like adding a middle name to it. Like imagine imagine going through that documentation process. Anyway, so obviously, so one day I come home, and because we're Basque, my brother goes, literally, this was his statement. We still quote it to this day. We're getting middle names. I already talked to mom. She's okay with it. Yours is Arancha. And that's a Basque name, and his was going to be Iñaki. So we were going to get in like Basque middle names, and Iñaki's always been one that I think is like so beautiful. So one side story about the psyche of my life. But yeah, shouts to Iñaki, man. We really do admire a humble king who can just speak truths without being an arrogant asshole. So thank you so much. On that note, there's also speaking of racism, so I guess like the French Federation, I always in my head I pronounce it like fa fa fa, right? Because it's three S. The fa 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 has decided to ban Muslim players from participating and celebrating any sort of Ramadan situation. You'll recall that France is the blackest team to ever win the World Cup. There were jokes made when France won the World Cup, memes from when France won the World Cup, that Africa indeed won that World Cup. In terms of the history of the players, not only them being black, but refugees in many cases, children of refugees, okay? And many of them practicing Islam. So it's extra, and societally in France and especially in Paris, the anti-Muslim sentiment is absurd. Like, women football players in France have been fighting this battle to be able to like play, in the headwear that is in no way, in my opinion, hinders anything about playing, right? Like, if anything, and if anything, if you want to go that route, like let's say it hinders their performance because I don't even know what the fuck the argument is, then it's them, it's on them, right? It shouldn't be any sort of thing where it's like, oh, you don't really care about their performance. We know the reason why you want to ban it, but if you want to say like, oh, it's less whatever, like, it makes them slower. I don't fucking know what the argument is. Let them. That's their choice, right? Like, let them be slower or whatever the fuck. Anyway, so we know the women have been fighting this battle. We know that society in France especially is extremely Islamophobic. Obviously, Islamophobia is on the rise everywhere because there's genocide supporters everywhere and Zionists. But so especially in France, and especially now, to make a decision like that feels so just icky, man. Just disgust. Like, I can't imagine the decision-making process behind, in 2024, making a decision like that and then making it public knowledge like that, like announcing it like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it doesn't compute. I know there's no rationality behind Zionism. There's no rationality behind white supremacy, behind Islamophobia. Like, there's no way to rationalize it. But I always try to be like, what could have been their reason, just to like try to understand, to see what, we could like grasp at, to like, what was their thought process. And there is literally no answer to that besides bigotry and racism. It's the only thing. It's the only thing. And so it's just disgusting that we are seeing this when it's okay for their players, when they win them World Cups, it's okay for them to be whatever. And they love to exploit and tokenize these players. Like, look at us. We've got this diverse team, right? As if it weren't for colonialist reasons, but all that aside. Okay. But then now, when it's convenient, you're all right with banning them from like just simple participation in their religion. Like, talk about a Christo-fascist state. It's like, come on, like, it's so transparent. Like, are you really gonna then pretend there's any other reason why you did this? There's no way, and there is no reason, and there's no justification, and I'm just like over it. I'm over it. And I don't know what developments there will be. I don't know if they'll reverse it. Probably not. But it's just like, what are we doing? And you know what we need? We need, in many ways, we need another Maradona. We needed Maradona to live way longer, dude. Like, for real, like for so many reasons. But I just saw a video come across my feed recently that reminded me that there is not and will never be. Well, I don't want to say will never be because we got to have hope, otherwise we redacted, right? But there is not and will not be in the foreseeable future another figure as bold and as willing to stand up for what's right as Maradona, right? In the football space. Our producer is telling me that that figure is me, and please, like, please, I think that is that's like um the number one compliment ever in life. Like I bow at the feet of Maradona, and would love to just be a fraction of the revolutionary that he was. But in this particular video, so like we don't have a voice that's in there, right? A player, a coach, right? Like we've got pockets of that, of people coming out and coming forward, like when injustice happens. But like to be this bold, he was talking about the military dictatorship in Argentina, and like he was asked some sort of dumbass question by the media, as the media tends to do, and then he answered it by being like he took such a stance that I was like, damn, I was shocked in retrospect, even though I had seen that interview, because we've gotten so watered down and mild. He was like, of course, he was like, why would anyone ever justify any sort of that like military dictatorship? We all lived through it. He was like, you couldn't even say like a word without them coming and like, taking you in at least for questioning or whatever. It was like a horrific time, right? We're right now reading a book in one of my classes I'm teaching that takes place from the point of view of a child during the dictatorship in the Dominican Republic, Trujillo's dictatorship, right? Brutal dictatorship. And so like we're seeing the things that through this child's eyes, who like kind of knows what's going on but kind of doesn't, and she has all these questions about like, did so and so just one day they were here, one day they're not? Why are we not allowed to like speak? Our house is bugged, like that kind of stuff. Like that's what was happening. People getting snatched off the street one day without ever finding out, right? Anything. And to connect and like he very like openly and boldly just answered this question. Now this was in the 90s, so it was after it had ended, but it was in a time period where there was a lot of apologism going on, and there still is, and it's gotten so much worse now, and especially now, after obviously after Milei, right? And so he was so boldly open about it, and it's just, but it boggles my mind. It doesn't really, but it kind of boggles my mind that we don't have a single person with the balls and the ovaries to openly denounce what it is. I mean, and whatever it is, if it's genocide, if it's this banning of the Ramadan celebrations, if it, like whatever it is, because we've got if it's the racism in La Liga, right? And that's why I have to, regardless of our feelings on Iñaki, which have never met anyone that didn't like him. That's the stuff we have to praise and uplift, because that was such a mild stance that he took. Really, we all should just be anti-racist. Like that's like the very, very like bottom of the barrel thing, right? And for him to say that stuff as a Black man was already so revolutionary that we should ask ourselves, what are we doing if that is considered so radical? What's left then of the genocide apologists, of the Zionists, right? And I haven't seen a single one. Well, that's not true. Folks who have, connections to Palestine in any way have said, and like the Palestinian team and all that stuff. But in terms of like big names, like Maradona's like was the guy. He was the guy, man, and he still is. But in that time period, he was like it, right, in the world. And for him to like be like that open about stuff, he went to Cuba, he was friends with Fidel, like all that stuff, like you don't see that now. And I feel like we need folks to step up, man. That's going to be the thing, because popular culture is key in getting folks on board with a revolution, and football is popular culture, and it's the most popular of cultures, right? Like it's the most popular sport in the world. So how much of a of an incredible, effect could it have if folks made it more mainstream, I guess, to denounce the things that are happening when they're happening. I don't know. Maybe I'm a crazy idealist, but on that note, we're going to call it a day for today. Thank you so much for sticking with us. Let's hope that that Pope John Paul II does not from the grave prevent us from getting you the message out this time. And you already know what it is. Join the Discord and I'll see y'all out there. And that was another episode of Real Francamente. Thank you so much for listening. I'm obsessed with y'all. Please share with your like-minded friends. Follow us on socials at Real Francamente. Leave likes, comments. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Leave comments, ratings, reviews, only if you love us, of course. Check out our website for more content, www.realfrancamente.com. We will catch you on the next one. And as always, bias your football content.